in our Bibles to the Gospel of John, chapter 18. To our missionaries, let me say that we're continuing to preach through the Gospel of John, and I am convinced that every missionary day God has a special message for you missionaries that receive this videotape. And you're very kind to respond and let me know what a blessing these services are to you. And we appreciate the privilege. Also, I feel that God blesses the church as well as you missionaries when we have these missionary days. May we stand together as we read the Bible. You follow along silently. I'm going to read verses 1 through 12, chapter 18 of John. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the brook Kidron, where was a garden, into the which he entered and his disciples. And Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place, for Jesus ofttimes resorted thither with his disciples. Judas then, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, cometh thither with lanterns and torches and weapons. Jesus therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth and said unto them, Whom seek ye? They answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus saith unto them, I am he. And Judas also, which betrayed him, stood with them. As soon then as he had said unto them, I am he, they went backward and fell to the ground. Then asked he them again, Whom seek ye? They said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus answered, I have told you that I am he. If therefore you seek me, let these go their way, that the saying might be fulfilled which he spake, Of them which thou gavest me have I lost none. Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it, and smote the high priest's servant, and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Then said Jesus unto Peter, Put up thy sword into the sheath. The cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it? Then the band and the captain and officers of the Jews took Jesus and bound him. Thank you, be seated. And our text is in verse 11. The cup which my Father giveth me, shall I not drink? The cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink? This happened during the day of Jesus' crucifixion in the early morning hours. The place was beyond the brook Kidron in a place called Gethsemane. And Jesus had been praying just before this happened, and he prayed with such earnestness that the Bible says great sweat drops, as it were, of blood came from his brow. And he said, Father, if there be any other way, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. And that is the cup of eternal suffering that he experienced on the cross. But there wasn't any other way, and he wanted the Father's will to be done. And Jesus knew why he came. He knew his purpose, but it did not make it easy. And so even he had to pray to receive guidance and strength during his earthly ministry. But he knew what it was all about, and ultimately he said, The cup which the Father hath given me, shall I not drink it? Of course, the answer is certainly yes. I am resolved to drink it. And I want to talk to you about a resolution that overcomes distractions. Jesus was totally and completely resolved to go to that cross, to take the sin debt of the world upon him and pay the price, that men and women and boys and girls might be saved from their sin, receiving the free gift of salvation which he purchased when he died on the cross of Calvary. Jesus was resolved, and therefore when distractions came along, he was able to withstand them because of the overriding resolution in his heart. Now, why, dear missionary, why, dear Christian, are you here on earth? You know, I had entertained the possibility of just asking some of you to just stand up and just answer that. Why are you here on earth? What is your purpose in life? But my better judgment said, no, don't do that. Because somebody's liable to get up and say something you don't believe in, and you're liable to have to say, no, that's not right. And because you're such a sweet, nice fella, that would be unbecoming to you. So don't do it that way. Just ask them rhetorically. Just ask them rhetorically. What is your purpose in life? Do you have an overriding purpose? If you have been born again, you do. And you have a calling. Because every Christian is saved not only from something, but to something. We're saved from hell. We're saved from the penalty of our sins. But we are saved to serve. And our main calling, every one of us, whether it's a pastor, missionary, minister of music, or whatever, every one of us, our main purpose is to live like a Christian. And a Christian is supposed to live like Jesus lived. And so the Lord leads us, you see. But as God leads us through life, that resolution to do what Jesus wants, to follow Jesus, to go where he leads, to stay where he says stay, to not allow these distractions that come to us and converge on us and sometimes tear us apart, but never to let these distractions separate us from that resolution to be what God has saved us to be. Now, there are several that are mentioned here. There are many others that Jesus faced and many others that you and I face. But first of all, there was disillusionment. Now, I suppose Jesus saw through Judas fairly early on, that Judas was not really a true follower of Jesus Christ. But remember, Judas was called to salvation just like the other apostles. And he gave the same witness that he had been saved just like the other apostles. When Jesus sent out the 12 and gave them power to cast out demons, Judas had power to cast out demons. When Jesus sent them out and gave them power to touch sick people and heal them, Judas had power to touch sick people and heal them. These apostles had so much confidence in Judas, they let him handle their money. He was the treasurer of the group. He had a sharp mind. He had good business sense. But Judas sold out Jesus. And in the moment that Jesus needed him most, and needed his love most, and needed his support most, Judas betrayed him by coming and kissing him and playing like he loved him, but was really, he had sold out to money. Money had gotten the best of Judas. And he sold out his Savior for money. And don't you know that this was an awful distraction to Jesus? Now, I don't know how much of a surprise it was to Jesus. But if it may not have been a total surprise, it hurt him. It hurt him deeply. And as I think about missionaries serving out in the fields, and as I think about church members, of all of the hurts and difficulties that we have in life, one of the most serious and disturbing distractions is when the people that we love and that we trust hurt us. And we become disillusioned with them. Now, sometimes it's their fault. Sometimes it may not be anybody's fault except somebody spread gossip. Sometimes we become disillusioned with people because somebody said something about him or her, and we took that at face value and we believed it, and maybe that person never knew about it. Sometimes we have lost confidence in people unjustly. Many other times perhaps we have lost confidence in people because of the ills that they have wreaked upon our lives. I think about parental abuse of children, where homes have incest in the home. And dear people, children of God, go through the rest of their life yearning for a healthy, wholesome relationship to a parent that they will never have because they looked up to Daddy and they cherished that father and they became disillusioned. And what a heartache and what a sword in the soul this is. Or I think of the awesome privilege it is to be an older Christian and to be a leader in the church and to have the sanction of God placed upon your life and the blessings of the church upon you and ordaining you and setting you aside. And what a privilege it is. But oh, I could write a sad, sad book about numerous of these church leaders that have fallen away. And I want to tell you, it brings great grief to your heart when this happens. And I know on the mission field how long you sometimes have to labor to bring one person to Christ. And what a joy and a thrill it is to see one convert brought to Christ. But yet how sorrowful your heart is when that convert turns away from Christ and lets the church down and lets Christ down. But listen, dear missionary and dear church member, these disillusionments are distractions. But go back to your resolution and run that disillusionment through your resolution, and everything that happens to you in life, run it through that resolution that you've made to live for Jesus and to serve Jesus. And I want to tell you what, if you'll just hang on to that resolution, it'll bring you through the distraction of disillusionment in people. It really will. And I'll tell you, it'll put a place in your heart of love for these that have fallen away. Long ago, I used to have a great deal of contempt for these heathen that used to be something and they're not. And I want to tell you, nowadays, I have a lot more love and pity for them than I have contempt. Because it's hard to be a Christian. It's easy to be saved, but it takes some doing to live for Jesus in this sinful world. So those that don't make it and those that fall away in shame, they need our pity and our prayer and our love. Not so much contempt, because look, listen, Jesus said, he that endures to the end shall be saved. So, resolution conquers disillusionment in people. And then the next thing that he mentions that I see is the possible distraction of political corruption, because here was Jesus praying, agonizing with the Father, and all of a sudden here comes soldiers, a large number of them, Roman soldiers, and the religious leaders in conjunction with the Roman soldiers, and they take Jesus and bind him. Political corruption. Here, the idea of the state and political leadership is a God-ordained thing. And we're taught in the Scripture to pray for those that are in positions of political leadership. And there are some things we are to render to Caesar as representative of the state and of political leadership. But here we find police brutality in its ugliest form. As these officers of the law with swords and with clubs and power come and take an innocent man and bind him out of his place where he was praying. And then later on, as we'll see next week, they were beating him and chastising him and cursing him. And you talk about police brutality, it was that way. Now, I think about these missionaries serving in fields. I remember in the Gambia where Belinda and Karen had to go to some official to get him to just stamp a passport. And did you have to make 2 trips to his office and stand there while he sat at his table and just while away his time, looking official, looking important, made them wait, made them come back. You could have done it in 10 seconds time. And things like this, not just in the Gambia, but in Brazil and even in America, political corruption can just eat at you. You know, it can just eat at you and gnaw at you, and bureaucracy makes you want to regurgitate. And you can become so cynical about the political process that you just get completely distracted from what God has called you to do. You can spend so much time and energy with red tape and bureaucracy and political corruption that you really will come to the point to where you want to give up. By the way, you know, we haven't figured out how to conquer this national debt that we have in America. But I want to tell you today how we can do it. If we would ordain that all of the salaries of the U.S. Congress would cease immediately, plus their retirement programs, until the budget was balanced. It would be balanced this next week, I can promise you that. And I want to tell you how we can get rid of crime or reduce it to such a point that it wouldn't be a problem in this society. If the legislators that are passing laws concerning crime and punishment, and the judges that are presiding over these trials relative to crime and punishment, and the prosecuting attorneys, the criminal attorneys that are working in behalf of the accused, if all of these three political leaders were forced not to buy a ranch in Texas, not to move to the suburbs, but to live right in the center of the most crime-infested communities, if every one of them were required by law to do that, I can promise you crime would be a thing of the past for the most part. Now, don't hold your breath till that happens, because they'll still be making the laws and doing all this and buying their ranches in Texas or maybe in Jamaica or some other place like that, so that if it gets too hot, they have a place that they can flee. Now, you see how easily you can get distracted from doing what the Lord. But listen, after having said that, don't worry about it. This is more of God's problem than it is yours and mine. And Jesus did not let the political corruption of his day keep him from going on and doing exactly what the Father sent him to do. And don't you let these distractions keep you from being. Don't buy the idea, well, everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it, so it's all right, and I'll just play their game and so forth. Don't do it. Just remember your resolution and refuse to let the distraction of the politics and the bureaucracy get you so down that you lose the joy and the excitement about being a Christian. And the thrill that God has put his hand on you and he's called you and he sent you into his world to be saved and to be a Christian. You know, with the demise of the thrill of living in New Orleans, and people talking about New Orleans as a dying city, and people talking about all the crime, and it is rampant, but it's everywhere, but it's easier to see, and the political corruption and gambling everywhere and everything, and people bailing out, trying to move to greener pastures. I know this attitude is very consuming when one gets it. And then if crime strikes you personally and hurts you in a personal way, all of these things come to bear in our allowing this distraction to get us away. But if I know my heart, if God were to tell me today that I could move to any church field I would like and name my salary, I would stay right here. Now, this is payday, and I don't know if I'm going to get paid, because last Sunday our offering was $600. About the lowest offering we've had. But it doesn't make any difference. Now, tomorrow I may change my mind. But today it's not bothering me, you see. And really, for the most part, I love living in this city because God put me here. And I love being the pastor of Lake Forest Baptist Church because I believe with all of my heart that God called me here. And I love you people, I really do, and I thank God for it. Distractions, disillusionment, political corruption. What was the third one that I'll mention this morning? Well, there was Simon Peter. And Simon, when he saw this large band, it just particularly galled him that the high priest's servant was there. So here was this sweet Christian gentleman, Simon Peter, and he draws out this big sword, And he aims at Malchus' head, trying to cut his head off, but he's a poor aim, and all he got was his right ear. Anger came all over him. It was not appropriate. Simon Peter did the wrong thing. Simon Peter sinned, folks. And Jesus he said, Simon, put the sword up. And then he takes the ear and puts it back on the man's head and heals him. It's amazing. Imagine what would have happened if he hadn't put the ear back on. Maybe he wouldn't have made it to the cross. That miracle was necessary for Jesus not to allow that distraction. You know, in dealing in the church, we are dealing with fellow sinners who have been saved by grace. And when you think that Jesus built his kingdom upon a group of men that would do things like this, Simon Peter sinned right there in such a holy moment. Oh, his motive might have been, well, to protect Jesus. But his method was sinful, you see. And in the church, often, frequently, we're dealing with brothers and sisters in the Lord who love Jesus, but oftentimes we don't use the right method, or we do things that are absolutely wrong. So I think bumbling, confused Christians can be a distraction. And look, we can look at our brothers and sisters and how little they're doing, and we can say, you know, I shouldn't be over there working at the church when they're out at the ball game. And I'm here, I'm the only one that cares. Why? I must be stupid. I'm going to start just to let somebody else do it. Or we choose those that are doing the wrong things and those that are maybe most outspoken in negativism, and we let that be the low benchmark, and we let it discourage us, and we let it become a distraction to us. Well, listen, Jesus overcame that distraction, and we can too. If we'll realize it, we've got to come back to that resolution. That if you have been the only sinner on earth, Jesus died for you. And if everybody else in this world would die and go to hell, do you want to die and go to hell? No, you don't. When you received Jesus, you received him personally. You didn't receive him with a crowd and say, okay, if y'all will do it, I'll do it. No, that's not the way you received Jesus. You received him personally, individually. So, if the whole church starts going to the casino and kicking up their heels with alcohol and getting drunk, if the whole church decides it's all right to do it, you make your mind up that even though that may hurt you, with God's help, if you're the only one, and you're not going to be, but if you are, with God's help, you're going to stick by that God has saved you for, that God has called you to, you see. And if it's not these distractions that Jesus faced, aren't there 10,000 other distractions? Bills that get you down. You say, oh, I prayed in faith. I even wrote off for a prayer cloth and sent some kind of a gift, a seed faith gift, and still I'm having a hard time. God must not love me. I may not have any power. And we can go on and get so down on God and get down on ourselves that we are distracted. Listen, we don't have long here. We're just moving on. So Andre Crouch, I believe, has a song, it won't be long till I'll be leaving here. We may not like to hear that, but that's right. So we better maintain that resolution, or else these distractions in life will get us down. Now Jesus said, the cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it? Absolutely, I'm going to drink it. He's talking about the cross, the cup of suffering, the cup of salvation. And so, by the same token, we can say the salvation and the cross that Jesus gave me of service, and it involves a daily cross that goes against the grain. But shall I not do that? Yes, I shall do that. I'm not going to let disillusionment, no matter how painful, knock me off track. I'm not going to let political corruption get my eyes off of what God has called me to do, and confidence in my God who is all-powerful and who will have the last word. I'm not going to let disappointment in Christians that hurts me deeply, I'm not going to let that embitter me and get me away from what Jesus called me to do, because really we have to help each other. We have to pray for each other. The writer of the song said, Am I a soldier of the cross, a follower of the Lamb? Shall I fear to own his cause or blush to speak his name? Must I be carried to the skies on flowery beds of ease while others fought to win the prize and sailed through bloody seas? Are there no foes for me to face? Must I not stem the flood? Is this vile world a friend to grace to help me on to God? Sure, I must fight if I would win. Increase my courage, Lord. I'll bear the toil, endure the pain, supported by thy word. And another one said, Lead on, O King eternal. The day of March has come. Henceforth in fields of conquest, thy tents shall be our home. Through days of preparation, thy grace has made us strong. And now, O King eternal, we lift our battle song. Lead on, O King eternal, till sin's fierce war shall cease, and holiness shall whisper the sweet amen of peace. Fear not with swords loud clashing, or roll of stirring drums. With deeds of love and mercy, thy heavenly kingdom comes. Lead on, O King eternal. We follow not with fears, for gladness breaks like morning where'er thy face appears. Thy cross is lifted o'er us, we journey in its light. The crown awaits the conquest. Lead on, O God of might. And then the chorus says, we're marching to Zion. We're marching upward to Zion. Beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching upward to Zion, the beautiful city of God. Resolution that defeats distractions. Today, if you don't have that resolution, if you are without Christ, you need to know why you're here and where you're going. And Jesus is the only one I know that can answer that, and he'll do it today. When you come to Jesus, he'll help you to know why you're here and where you're going. Come to receive Christ today. As our counselors are here to receive you, you come and let the Lord guide you in any way that he's touching your heart. You come, and they'll be here to pray with you and to counsel you. Stand together, please.